Hey, I'm extremely busy. What's up? It's the Culture Detective here investigating your favorite albums, and today I'm going to be doing an album review on the new Björk album, Fossora. Yeah, I'm really busy lately. I don't think I will have the time to do any reviews tomorrow. I didn't do any yesterday, I think. No, I did yesterday. Oh my god, I'm so busy. Anyways, today I'm going to be talking about Björk. And if you don't know about Björk, well then you are missing out because Björk is a legendary art pop singer-songwriter from Iceland, and she has contributed so much to the world of art pop and to the world of artistic music that she is honestly one of the most important musical artists of the last few decades. Debut post homogenic Vespertine. She has multiple classics under her belt. And also, I actually apparently have never reviewed a Björk album on my channel before. I have talked about Utopia a little bit, which is released in 2017, 5 years ago. I've talked about Utopia a little bit. Maybe I may or may not have reviewed it in a mini albums review, but even so, I didn't really talk about it in depth. This is actually my first full-length Björk album review, despite the fact that I've had this channel for 5 years. This is the first time I'm dedicating a whole video to Björk. Björk's earlier works are all fantastic. Her latest works still have a lot of great moments. Utopia is not bad, and the album before that, Volnicura, is also pretty amazing. I think I've also mentioned Volnicura a couple times before. But anyways, we have a new Björk album, and this time, I can safely say that I really admire Björk for trying out a different sound on every single album, because this album sounds a lot more different than Utopia. Utopia is dreamy, light, euphoric, and it's filled with flutes and woodwinds, as you can probably tell with the album cover. But this new album here is a lot more disjointed, noisy, industrial, and it has the reeds that are present in most of the tracks here, which are very horrifyingly chopped up. This album is a lot more off-kiltered, creepy. There are moments of isolation and alienation sprinkled on this album, but also one of the biggest motifs on this album is motherhood and raising children and family. So the album starts off with Atopos, which has the avant-garde operatic vocals, the pumping, huffy puffy reeds, the slamming beats, and the weird vocal layers. It sounds like four very different instrumentals crashed together, but it somehow worked. I think it is a very interesting musical palette, and I also think that the layers come together really interestingly, especially when the track starts to get more electronic, because I kid you not, techno and Gabber are huge parts of this album as well. However, even though the album opener is not bad, I can say that this album is actually a little bit disappointing because a lot of the tracks here do feel kind of unfinished, like the second track, Ovule, with the horns, which are very nice, but then we also have the very stiff beats, which do not complement the horns really well. The lack of structure and order on this track make this track feel like a half-baked song idea. The track Mycelia is an interlude with synths and some chopped up vocal layers. It sounds interesting for a little while, but for 2 minutes straight, not really. The track Sorrowful Soil is a track where it's nothing but group vocals, a cappella. And the performances are beautiful, but it just feels like one of those tracks where, ooh, it's a cappella, so it's artsy. It doesn't feel like it's going deep enough into the musical sauce, if you know what I mean. The track has a lack of dynamic, and I like the lyrics about motherhood and family, but not very great. However, the next track, Ancestress, is truly fantastic. This is a 7 minute and 17 seconds long multifaceted track with ascending instrumentals, gongs and bells and strings sort of layered one section after another. It's not a very conventional Björk track, but the boldness of this track does make up for that. That is followed with a so-so interlude called Fagurt i Fjordum, which is kind of brief and forgettable, where Björk sings a bit of a song in Icelandic fully, which is nice, but it's just very brief and it doesn't go anywhere. Victimhood also starts off very interesting with the eerie and spacey and scary tones. It truly sounds dark in the first half until it gradually builds up to these cascading reeds and vocals that don't sound all that special. Allow has the Baroque woodwinds from Utopia. It's euphoric, it's orchestral, and the vocal duets are really nice and light. And even though the track feels out of place, I do kind of enjoy it. I do think this is one of the better tracks here. And the album does end off pretty nicely. We have Fungal City with the oddly arranged reeds and the vocal layers. Apparently, Serpent with Feet is also featured on this track, so that's pretty friggin' cool. And then the track builds up to some hardcore pounding insanity, and it sounds great. But then next up, we have a pretty lame interlude called Tröla Gaba, which is sort of a spooky interlude. That sounds like it came out of a very cheaply made movie soundtrack. The detuned vocal layers and the spooky booms and bangs come together in a very awkward manner. The last three tracks are great though. Freefall features the emotional stripped back strings with a rustic touch, and we have beautiful vocals with an amazing climax. I also like the plucky strings on this track. Fossora, the title track, is easily my favorite track here. The gabber and the vocals and everything else sort of combine in the most perfect way possible. There's this really scratchy, noisy loop in the back, and then at the front we have this very weird, off-kiltered orchestral reed section, which also sort of loops around. So we have these two loops going on, and it gets noisier and noisier to a very gratifying peak. The album ends off with Her Mother's House, which is a very low-key ending featuring Björk's daughter, who sings pretty nicely on this track about home and love. And this track is a very endearing and warm way to end off the album. So yeah, second half is pretty great. First half didn't come off too well. There are still tons of moments on this album that feel kind of like a leftover, kind of half baked, not really all that great. But I still really respect Björk for trying something different on every album, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. I don't think this album is that great, but it's still interesting. I'm giving Björk's latest album, Fossora, a strong 6, maybe to a light 7 out of 10. So, have you listened to the new Björk album, Fossora, from 1 to 10? Just rate it, like it, and subscribe if you want more. And thanks for watching. Um, yeah, there's the new Kid Cudi album, there's a new Freddie Gibbs, and then there's a new YG. King Gizzard will be releasing 3 albums. There's a new Open Mic Eagle. Taylor Swift is releasing a new album. Clarence Clarity is releasing a new album as well. Oh my god, that's a lot of albums.